Okay, so we said that the updates on the Princess would be a bit fewer and further between since I took the AllegRo on. Mixing with that also like moving premises, yeah, it's been pretty bleak on the Princess front, but I have done some work and there's been plenty of people asking for updates, so here's an update. One of the first things I wanted to do was the fun stuff. I wanted to start visualising more how the engine bay is going to look. Obviously it's really scabby at the minute, but one of the things I've been concerned about is how I'm going to get manifolds that come forward to allow me to mount turbos symmetrically either side of the radiator, basically in front of the strut towers. And I think really one of the only ways I'm going to be able to do that is by getting rid of the power steering pump off the one side, and I've also taken the alternator off the other side. Obviously I'm going to need an alternator and I'm going to need a power steering pump. So I think with the power steering pump, what I'll probably do is have an electric hydraulic pump. So something like off an Astra, because they have hydraulic power steering but with an electric pump rather than a belt driven pump. And then the alternator, I think I'm just going to try and get a smaller one and mount it in a slightly different position. That's something to worry about in the future, but something that I wanted to be sure about before kind of beginning to think about panelling up in the engine bay. I need to know where to put the panels, and if turbos are going to be in different locations, that's something I need to consider. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the mechanical water pump, because it's a massive lump on the front of the engine, and I think given what I'm going to use the car for, I'll probably be better off with an electric pump anyway. Car's going to be on like an aftermarket ECU, so it's easy enough to control. So I'm going to go for an electric pump. Just try and clean up the engine, basically. Get rid of most things that are belt driven, because it does have a huge tensioner, pulley system, because we've got things driven off of both sides of the V. So yeah, by getting rid of some of that stuff, I can kind of neaten it all up. So that's one thing. And then the next thing was I needed to start taking the doors off, because I need to strengthen up the shell so that I could cut all the rotten sills off. So that was the next thing I did, really. There's loads of panel work still to do in the engine bay, but one of the things that I do need to kind of get done sooner rather than later is start figuring out the prop shaft. Because we've now got the rear subframe fixed in its final position and the gearbox fixed in its final position, I know what the prop shaft length will be. So I can get that manufactured, and that might have quite a long lead time. So I'd rather try and get it done sooner rather than later. Now obviously, to fit that prop shaft in, the floor, well, a big tunnel has got to be cut. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and given how much of the floor I've already cut out at the front, and the sills, the exterior sills are totally rotten, what I'm going to do is cut the whole floor out, all of the inner sills and the outer sills, and literally leave myself with just the door steps, and then kind of refabricate everything from that. It'll allow me to kind of strengthen up the door steps by, you know, welding some tubes or something like that inside them, and allow me to just get everything completely rot free inside there, because that's going to be the main area where there's still kind of rot and rust in the car. So that's going to be what I'm on with today, really. Getting the floor cleared out, getting it cut out, and then starting to think about cutting the sills, and then how we're actually going to remanufacture and yeah, like what we're going to do to put a floor back in it.
This is the big pile of floor that's been cut out. There's a lot of weight there, so again I'm looking forward to what we put in being a lot lighter weight. Obviously this has got the really heavy, thick, like sound deadening and insulation all kind of stuck to it still, and like rust in all of the box sections that run in underneath the floor and things like that. So it's good to get all this out, because you know we're going to this kind of level with the car now. We may as well chop out all the crappy old floor.
I managed to break the glass like an absolute wally. Even though I've taken glass, this kind of screen out before, I managed to break it. So I was a bit disappointed about that, but I should be able to get another one. They're not super hard to get hold of, given that it's the only bit that doesn't rot away.
Really broke it now. Very, very broken. It's pretty tight in there, I'm not gonna lie. And this is the first one I've ever broke, so that's really annoying. Because it's probably going to be the hardest one to replace. Yeah, it's just annoying because now I've got a broken piece of glass, and it's going to be even harder to get out because it's broken it in both corners now. But persevere, got to get it out. So I want to keep the rubber in good condition. That's the main thing. Obviously, it is a little bit perished, but if I can keep the rubber in good condition, that's a start. Okay, there we go. Having some success now. It's just going to keep breaking. Cracking. She's out. Shame it's already broke. Sure there'll be lots of people screaming at me in the comments. Why didn't you do it like this? Why didn't you do it like that? The reality is, I'd like to think I know what I'm doing. That one came out easy because it's broken in half. So that's a bit rubbish. It's going to hit the door skin on the outside before it comes all the way out. Wow, such great design. So then we're going to have to bite the bullet and take the door to bits. This has been off a few times before. Clipped all the way around the outside. Still don't really want to break this. Just get a replacement. It's probably going to be quite tricky. Does this unscrew? Nope. Bin liner, good start. The door card actually isn't in bad condition, to be honest. I expected to see like a ton of mould behind here. It's pretty bent and broken, but I don't know what I'm going to do about the door cards yet. I would like to try and keep them original looking, I guess. Gimbal's having a fit. Please don't tell me the batteries are gone in the gimbal. Yep. F***ing batteries. I need a cameraman. Sam, where you at? That'll have to do. I can't tell you how glad I am to have all of this cut out now. Again, it's sometimes these are the jobs you put off, but all that welding wire. Ugh.
I've took the doors off because that's allowed me to put some bracing into the door frames so that the the actual outside shell of the Princess shape doesn't change, so that when I do put the doors back on they still fit, even though I'll have kind of made up all new sills. So with the doors off and it all braced up, really that allowed me to start creating this transmission tunnel I've been talking about. Obviously I did a little bit of work getting the gearbox mounted at the back and the shifter in place. So the shifter is in place now and works, which is cool. And I've managed to create this kind of tunnel, which is also part of the structure.
Now with most of the floor chopped out and all of the sills gone, we're left with nothing. We can kind of start creating the internal structure of the car. And one of the first areas we need to start with is this transmission tunnel. So I've laid some tubes in. Obviously we'll need to come down from that upper dash bar that I put in donkeys ago. It'll need to come kind of down from there, and I might need to make some modifications to this anyway, because I maybe didn't get it as far back as what I needed to, and it's still a bit awkward to get the engine in and out. Now I know the engine is really meant to come out the bottom with the subframe, but if possible I'd like to be able to have the option to take it out the top. And yeah, if that bar was a bit further back, it would make that easier. But yeah, we're going to need a bar coming down from here down to like the kind of gear stick mount that I put in. And then we're going to need a bar which goes back to like kind of the rear diff area, because this is going to form the kind of prop shaft tunnel and then the exhaust tunnel. So I obviously mentioned earlier about leaving enough room inside of here for the exhaust to come through. We need 2 3-inch exhausts to come either side of the gearbox and prop shaft, and we need to leave as much room as that all the way to the back as well. So I think the first thing to start with is where I'm actually going to mount this this bar at the back. Now I've obviously got my cross members. I've got my rear subframe in still. And I've got the kind of chassis legs that I built, which kind of come up from this like main chassis area here, this big piece of 2x4 box section. So that's kind of like the lower half of the chassis of the car. And then what I'm going to do, I'll just put this down, is I'm going to have a piece of bar which runs along the back here. So I've cut a piece roughly, but it needs shaping to fit. So I'm going to have a piece which goes either side of those chassis legs, that's kind of almost tight up against the rear subframe, and that is then going to form the mounting point for this bar, which is going to come kind of front to back. So that's the first thing to do. I'm going to grind the edges of this at a bit of an angle so that it fits in right, clean the bar up, and then get it tacked in. Yeah, what I'm going to do now is figure out a long piece of bar. I've got a piece of bar that's like roughly, that's going to go front to back like that.
And obviously this is going to form the main tunnel and also interior upper structure of the car. So I'm going to, again, kind of eyeball it a little bit, figure out exactly what room I need, and then yeah, I'll probably just cut a slot into here for it to drop down into, and then I'll obviously have to notch this out, do the same the other end, and get this bit tacked in. Right, so as you can see, I've now got these two bars in, running all the way down the length of the car to the front to this kind of gear stick mount that I put in a while back. Obviously this is also, yeah, it mounts the gear stick, and I've got it like kind of tied down to the kind of chassis rail. Again, it's a bit rough at the minute. I might end up chopping those pieces of box section out, but we'll see. But it's given us a level, because we knew we needed this to be the height of where the gear stick gator is. You know, I can't really change that because it's where the height of the gearbox is. And yes, I can change the height of the gear stick, etc. But you know, try not to modify more parts than I need to. So yeah, we've got those bars in. I spent a while, well, 5 minutes or so, getting them all squared up. And obviously they're tied into that back rail. So now really it's going to be a case of getting them tacked in. I'll probably put like a brace in the middle, maybe. I mean, yes, at some point, but maybe not right away. I don't really need to do that. So then it's going to be a case of taking this bar up underneath the dashboard up to that main dash rail up there. Yeah, and then we're getting pretty close to having a kind of 3D structure of a car rather than it just being a flat set of chassis rails. And we're taking less and less of the strength of the body of the car, which obviously I'd rather not use. I'd rather just use my own internal chassis and the body just be a shell, basically. And that's where we're getting to with it. So yeah, let's get these tacked in. So this is the next piece, basically. I've going to start trying to brace up the back end. Basically, we're just working towards putting a floor in the car. There's so many things that need to be done. You just got to pick something, and you know, a floor seems like the next most fun thing to do, but doesn't require a lot of money spending on it, I guess. So that's the easiest thing to go for. So yeah, I'm going to try and build out a bit more structure into these top bars. And then at some point we're going to begin to kind of come out of the chassis and kind of make some outriggers. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the underneath of a TVR. My dad's got a TVR. And I know like they have like the main chassis structure, which is like a kind of like a ladder which goes down the middle. Not like a ladder like a Land Rover. Think about like a telescopic crane, you know, with a tower crane. A bit like that. And then out from that to support the body, they have outriggers, and that's what always rots. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to create here. I'm going to create some outriggers, which are basically just going to support the sills and the body of the car eventually. But yeah, if I can kind of build the main structure of the interior first, yeah, then we can move on to probably some sheet metal work which will come next. So yeah, got that one in there. Just need to cut another one for the other side, and then again we'll get it tacked in. Again, because I've already you know, worked this out, got an angle on the bottom of this tube, it makes it easy to locate it anyway, really. All I've got to do is make sure that it's in the middle of the box section. There we go, that's got them in. Quick tip, I'm definitely no MIG welding expert, but one thing when you're welding, MIG welding upside down, loads of people do this, they have problems with like getting the wire to stick, if you know what I mean, because it wants to run down, like gravity wants to help the pool drip, and the way to counter that is to run more wire speed. You actually have to force more wire in there, and they inevitably actually run more power as well. You really do need different welding settings for welding upside down. That's why I turned the welder up when I went around. You probably didn't see that actually, yeah, you probably didn't. I turned the welder power and speed up when I was doing underneath, because if I'd have tried to do it the other way, it would just be messy. I mean, not that my MIG welding is neat anyway, but yeah, it does the job. So yeah, that's that. I'm going to put another piece in here now. I think I'm actually going to like do it diagonal, so like say, like kind of make like a ladder frame. Yeah, so instead of having like just pieces like that, like ladder rungs, what I'll probably do is I'll have it at an angle like that, and that'll probably look the neatest, I think. Look, get a bit of style. So yeah, let's cut some more tube. Cool, so we have got like ladder portion of the chassis or upper chassis made. It's all tied into the dashboard. Obviously we've still got lots of strengtheners to do. We've got to start thinking about this floor situation. We need some outriggers to put the floor on, but that's some pretty decent progress. It's starting to look more and more car-like, I'm not going to lie. I need to make a decision pretty soon about whether I'm going to use the Princess seats or not. I really would like to, but I don't know. I kind of feel like the car is more and more turning into the kind of car that needs a proper seat in it, and not a big armchair paprika seat. I'm just going to grab one, I think, and try and plonk it in, see if we've got enough room for it. Well, that's probably made my mind up for me, unfortunately. I mean, yes, I probably could have made the transmission tunnel a bit narrower, because obviously it's right up against it, but it would need to come over a significant amount. That's the problem with these seats, they are so wide. Try and show it. Like, they're so wide, that seat is nowhere near the centre of the steering wheel. It wants to come over a good 4 inches. The seats more or less kind of touch in the middle. So yeah, I think realistically I'm going to be looking at a bucket seat, but that was kind of an idea I had originally anyway, was to have a bucket seat but then have it retrimmed in the paprika material so that it's a bit more you know, 70s 80s Austin. So yeah, I need to get a seat, or a pair of seats obviously. So yeah, like, we're beginning to get to some fun stuff. I've not put a lot of hours into it, just little bits as and when I can in between other projects and obviously the day job, but we're getting there. I've also got this box section framing on the floor, which is really lightweight, kind of thin wall box section, but this is how I'm going to start to create the floor now. This box section frame is super square and super flat and parallel, or as close as I can get it without having the car in a jig. And now I can start to actually panel up where I've removed all of these sills. So there's no inner sill, there's no outer sill, there's literally just a door step, basically where the door shuts to. And then I'm going to basically create like a flat inner sill, which will come straight down and connect onto this box section here. And then a floor which obviously goes inboard of that, and then like a kind of tunnel which comes up at an angle. So we're going to have like two kind of tubs, front and back. And then we can begin to think about, basically once we've got that in, we've got most of the strength back in it again. You know, we don't need the outer sill really, because this car is not bearing any load anymore. So the outer sill is more or less just to, I guess, to help support the door frames, even though really that's mainly been done by the inner sill. But yeah, all of this is important but kind of boring work, which allows us to start thinking about things like the rear wheel tubs and creating those cool wheel arch flares, and then creating the outer sills and kind of what shape we're going to make them and how low we're going to go with them, if we're going to kind of create any kind of side skirt. So I am making progress on it. I am getting there. I'm kind of chipping away at it in bits and bobs, you know, Saturday afternoons, Sunday mornings, those kinds of things. I am making progress. Hopefully, one of the next things we'll start to see is me start to panel out the floor now and then create these inner sills. And then we can get onto wheel tubs front and back. Because I'm keen to try and make some progress on like the aesthetic parts of the outside of the car. One of the challenges with something like this is there's so much to do. It can be a bit overwhelming. So it's best just to try and take things in little segments, look at little jobs, or just take one job at a time. So it's all been about getting this gearbox tunnel and floor in really. So yeah, hopefully the next time you see it, I'll have some panel work in here. So for those of you that haven't seen on social media stuff as well, I've also been toying around with this Capri ducktail spoiler, which I do like, and I think is probably going to stay, to be honest. Obviously it needs a bit of work to get it to fit right, but I think it suits the Princess pretty well. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed watching this update, however it's come out. There's a lot of footage that's been shot over a long period of time, but that's kind of the only way I can film it at the minute. I'm obviously busy with other projects, and I knew that was going to be the way, but I'm still enjoying working on it, and if you're enjoying watching it, then it's all good. So thanks for watching.